It is April 4th, 2023, and this is my latest news update for expats and visitors to Medellin, Colombia, and Colombia as a whole. Follow along. Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever it is you're located. Thanks for watching. My name is Rob Christian, also known as dcbornrob or DC Rob. I'm going to jump right into the news. This first story is breaking, and this is actually good news. Well, good news from a bad story anyway, and I'll tell you what I mean. This first one is broken by Minuto 30, Juliet Jimenez. It says that they captured 3 people who would be involved in the death of a young Vietnamese in Medellin. That's right. The Vietnamese guy who was killed last year, they found the people, well, some of the people. So after his arrival in Medellin, he met a woman he met through an app, and nothing was heard from him until they found his body with signs of having been drugged with scopolamine. Paul Nnuyen, 27, was found dead next to a garbage can in the early hours of Friday, November 11th, 2022 in Medellin. In the last hours, they captured 3 people who would be related to the crime. The young man of Vietnamese nationality came to Medellin to enjoy a vacation after graduating in the United States. While in the city, he found himself in a restaurant with a woman he had met through Tinder. He took a selfie there, and nothing was heard from him again until he was found dead in the Poblado neighborhood with signs of being drugged with scopolamine. The friends with him he traveled with went to see his body at legal medicine. He did not have his documents or personal belongings. Well, in the last hours, the woman with whom Paul would have gone out that night for that last time with those 2 other people who are apparently involved in the crime, they were captured. Until this publication of this note, the authorities did not provide any details of the capture. Okay, so here's another source. I have El Colombiano, same. It's a short story, but I like to do 2 if I can on important stories, because sometimes one story shares a little bit of information that the other one didn't have. And I'll show you what I mean. It says they captured 3 people for the murder of a Vietnamese in Medellin. The authorities are advancing in the operations to find 2 other people who would be involved in this crime. For the homicide of the Vietnamese Paul Nnuyen, registered on November 10th in the Poblado El Cucaracho neighborhood, the authorities captured this weekend 2 men and a woman accused of this crime. The procedure was carried out by the Metropolitan Police in various parts of the city after months of investigation and analysis of evidence recorded after this crime. In the midst of the capture, it was established that the woman with whom this foreigner had met through Tinder had changed her hair color to try to evade authorities. At this moment, the authorities are on the trail of 2 other people who would be involved in the murder of this Asian, who would be on a business trip in the city. Nguyen had contacted the woman and was in a commercial establishment in Laureles, but later lost track of her. His body was found in a dumpster in this neighborhood of Comuna 7, Robledo, and through forensic work, it was found to be Nguyen. This foreigner was robbed of all his documentation and the money he had in his bank accounts. One of his key pieces of evidence to find the captures were security videos of the commercial establishments in the Los Colores neighborhood, where the criminals would have gone to make some purchases. So cameras again got him, guys. Okay, my next story is from Minuto 30. It's entitled Evacuations Begin. Nevado del Ruiz Volcano Eruption Alert. So this volcano is gonna blow. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there's been an excess of earthquakes over the past month or so. I forgot how many, maybe a couple thousand. And I think they're originating with this right here, with this volcano. So, where a lot of it is related to this volcano. So they've already evacuated some people, but if it blows, it may be pretty bad. But says the evacuations begin. President Petro announced the start of the evacuation of some of the areas near the Nevado del Ruiz volcano. Minuto 30. On the night of this Sunday, April 2nd, the President of the Republic, Gustavo Petro, announced that he had begun the evacuation process of some areas very close to the Nevado del Ruiz volcano. Through Twitter, the President trilled that the preventative evacuation of the upper part of the snow has begun. Petro asked that the communities that will be evacuated a lot of discipline in the evacuation exercise while congregating the local risk to communities. For his part, Luis Fernando Velasco, director in charge of UNGRD, responded to a citizen's request about the exact areas, how many families, and where they're going to take the evacuees. The official explained that people who evacuated may be relocated to the home of relatives or friends in the first instance. Likewise, many people also receive a rental subsidy in the second instance. Okay, this next one is the ombudsman warning of a violation of human rights of foreign tourists in Medellin. So somebody in the government there is standing up. I'm not really sure what an ombudsman does, but if anybody there knows, let me know what an ombudsman is. I would assume he's like a junior mayor. I don't know. Active, I don't know. But it says, according to the district ombudsman, well, we know he's government, in 2022, 18 people with nationalities other than Venezuelan were murdered. He's talking about in Colombia. A serious violation of the human rights of foreign tourists occurred in Medellin, a phenomenon that is increasing in that in 2022, added that violent deaths of 18 people of other nationalities other than Venezuelan. The alert has just been issued by the Medellin District Ombudsman through the Tourism Observatory, an agency that collected information that shows violations of the rights of the population, especially between the months of April and August, a phenomenon that is attributed to the fact that in said period, they give special dates like Holy Week and the Flower Fair. This situation generates alert, especially due to the data provided on complaints of theft against foreigners. Since during that quarter of April and August of the year 2022, 155 complaints were filed for theft against people, compared to 2021 when 106 complaints were reported. Also, during 2021 and 2022, there were 18 cases of violent deaths of non-Venezuelan foreigners denounced by this public ministry agency. It says the entity draws attention to the fact that the festive gastronomic and entertainment offer that the city offers on these dates motivates the influx of visitors and of figures are higher. Citing figures from the Colombian Hotel and Tourism Association, Colecto, the ombudsman highlights that in April 2022, a hotel occupancy of 77% was registered, considered the highest figure in its history. In addition, 53% of the occupation was made up of foreigners and 46.9% by national tourists. He also cites the report of the Tourist Intelligence System of the Medellin Mayor's Office, according to which for the first quarter of 2021, there were 38,574 visitors, compared to 2022, in which had a figure of 108,490. Okay, it has been possible to show that there are no comprehensive actions planned between entities to mitigate the situation of violation in the tourist environment. So this agency of public ministry sees it necessary to send an alert about this situation and considers making some recommendations to improve the safety of tourists during Holy Week and the different tourist areas of the District of Medellin. I'm going to beg to differ. Now, I don't get into their politics, of course, but if you hear the stories I've been reading for the past 2 weeks, the cops have been on it. The mayor's been on it. Again, this is an election year, so the mayor's got to step some things up and show that he's doing something. But, I mean, they caught the out of all those murders, I mean, I've been covering this for almost 4 years now. Very rarely do you hear that they caught the murderer. And I've been doing the news updates too. Very, very rarely do you hear that they caught him and that they get convicted too. So it's up to the judicial right now. And as that story and this one's going to show, the police are doing their job. I mean, from what I can tell. And again, report all stories to the police. Report them. Okay, this one says, a terrifying video. Robbers closed an entire road to rob a driver in Bogota. The victim assured that she would file a formal complaint in this case and reported that the robbers were looking for money because a business had closed hours before. So they may have followed them home. It's what the victims think. 4 criminals who were moved on a motorcycle stopped traffic in the town of Usaquén, Bogota, to carry out a robbery. This event was recorded on video, and the thieves managed to fire their weapons to intimidate the victim. The victim states that at this moment the fact is being presented. One of the criminals fires a shot with a traumatic weapon, which hits one of the windows in the vehicle, explained Ruben Gayton, colonel of the Usaquén police station. The events were recorded around 5 p.m. on March 30th. The robbers closed Carrera 9 with Carrera 153. In the images released, it can be seen how the criminals intimidated a man who was driving in a white van. 2 of the criminals stopped traffic while the other 2 inspected the vehicles. The robbers, without the loot, drove their motorcycles in the wrong direction, and the police arrived seconds later. They escaped, and the authorities are still tracking them, so they haven't found him. The victim assured the police hours before the robbery he had closed a business, and possibly the robbers were looking for the money that they presumed they had given him in cash. The only thing they could steal was a gold chain that was valued at 1,500,000 pesos. The victim assured that he will report the theft through virtual mechanisms. Okay, so again, they're saying nothing's happening, but I mean, in this case, they got away. Let's see if they catch him. But most of the stories, the big stories anyway, they've been doing their work and catching them. Okay, this one's entitled, "The Donia who gets into taxis does not pay. Apparently would be doing the same on buses in Medellin." So this chick, I had this story for a while. She goes around and doesn't pay. Okay, she goes to a restaurant and decides, I'm not paying. She sits on the bus, in which this is this story. And I'm going to also run the video from the prior story since I didn't read that story. But it shows her sitting at the table saying, man, I'm not paying. I don't know what you mean. I think at a hotel too, she just said, I'm not paying. So she's the Donia, she's the boss that ain't paying, okay? Says the woman would have taken advantage of the fact that the bus had an incident to get out and the driver caught her, okay? And the video, and I'm not going to, you won't hear the audio, but the driver's calling her out. You're the same one from the news that didn't pay at the restaurant, that didn't pay at the hotel. So he's calling her out. He remembered her from the video, from the news. Okay, it says a video circulates again in which the woman who apparently has been getting on public transport vehicles without paying the ticket would be this time on a bus. The driver of a Medellin bus records a woman while he asks him for the ticket. She only says that she does not have the money to pay him. So she's just saying, I ain't got it. In the recording, the driver is heard saying, this is the lady who gets into taxis, the woman who goes into restaurants and does not pay for the tickets and is already getting on the buses, and it's her because I have the photo of her. So I guess he downloaded the video and said, a picture from the video and said, if she ever comes on my bus, I got her. And old boy caught her. So but she excuses herself by saying, in Monterrey, they are waiting for me so they can pay for the ticket. According to the conversation, the woman who wears an elegant dress, bag, and shoes would have taken advantage of the fact that the bus had a road incident with a motorcycle to get on. The woman who is pointed out by the taxi drivers was recently requested and individualized by police uniforms. There you go. The chick who ain't paying. La Donia, the boss chick. Okay, it says Colombia works to join the U.S. visa waiver program. Okay, this has been going on for a while, but they are still active at it. Says the Vice Minister of the Foreign Affairs, Francisco Coy, and the Colombian Ambassador to the United States, Luis Guillermo Murillo, reviewed the requirements of the program. Colombia began the procedure to be included in the United States waiver program, which would allow its citizens to travel to the North American country for tourism and business without the need to apply for a visa. The Foreign Ministry reported this Thursday. The Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, Francisco Coy, and the Colombian Ambassador to the United States, Luis Guillermo Murillo, reviewed the requirements of the admission program to comply with the 5 pillars established by the United States government. These pillars are counterterrorism and law enforcement, traveler detection, immigration, law enforcement, and travel identity documents, the Foreign Ministry detailed in a statement. The objective, the information added, is to define the necessary procedures internally and with the United States authorities to allow Colombians in the future to travel to the United States for tourism and business purposes without the need to obtain a visa. The Director of Colombian Migración, Carlos Fernando Garcia, and representatives of the National Police, the Office of the Attorney General, and the Nation of the Civil Aeronautics are participating in this meeting. Okay. The next story is from Waiver in El Poblado. Mayor postpones embrace of Yaris. Without mention, agreement on Thursday, March 30th. The deadline had been set to start the pedestrianization of the sector surrounding Parque Yaris. Maybe he's trying to make it only pedestrian only, where you can block the streets and no cars can get through. It says an intervention that had been called Embrace of Yaris. The district mayor, Daniel Quintero, reported today, Friday, March 31st, that he said the said activity, it will be postponed to an indefinite date and at the end of April. And I think it's got to do with money too, because he's got to prove where he's going to get this money from. Okay, it says the first date had been announced by the president on the afternoon of Thursday, March 2nd, at the public event in the Joshua Ultranage establishment, before dozens of merchants and some residents, after a platform that had been previously installed for this purpose was dismantled. On the side of the parque Yaris corresponding with Carrera 37A, at this time, the mayor asked the merchants and residents to organize themselves at a work table to arrange with them a way in which said closure would be given to vehicular traffic without the quadrant that would be defined approximately by races 37 and 40, as well as 8th and 10th Streets. Living in El Poblado consulted this week with several of the attendees of the aforementioned meeting on March 2nd, and none of them, including the spokesperson for the four civic corporations with an impact on the sector, realized that the promised table had been conveyed and created of work of concerted the embrace of Yaris. So they're working on this. I apologize for the stumbling. I'm starting to take some of these stories now and redo them, but I haven't had a time to do it in this one. Again, I'm up early. Because sometimes they say he, she, just the accents, the commas, the periods, it's just way off. It just whacks everything out. Okay. This one is from InfoBay. It says minimum wage in Colombia is one of the lowest in Latin America. According to Picotti, said support, which in dollars is $249, 1,160,000 only exceeds that of Peru and Brazil. Talking about the monthly minimum wage in force in Colombia is a matter that becomes hot and at the beginning of the year, because the national government, labor unions, and businessmen, after various discussions and studies of inflation, set the increase that is established for those who earn this support. Precisely for 2023, it was agreed that the minimum wage for this country is 1,160,000 pesos, which is the equivalent to approximately $249. In addition, 140,000 pesos in transportation assistance, which brings this to touch 1,300,000 pesos. Again, it still may be another $20, $260. According to Picotti, although with the government of Gustavo Petro, one of the largest increases in history, 16% was made, that the Colombia is one of the lowest minimum wages in Latin America. This indicated that the country ranks as the third lowest minimum wage in the region. It is only surpassed by Peru, the USD 233, and Brazil, USD 232, which by 2023 increased by 10% and 8% respectively, while the countries with the highest minimum wage are Uruguay and Ecuador, Chile at 369 and Argentina at 336, the USD. Meanwhile, the countries with the highest minimum wage in the world are Luxembourg at 2,140 per month, Australia 2,022, Netherlands 1,895, and New Zealand at 1,866. Lower the salary than 10 years ago. Okay. I think that's my last story. Sorry I didn't get to end on good news, but that explains the lowering of the minimum wage should show you something. It's a struggle. So desperate people do desperate things. I know if my family needed to eat and I see you people coming down, I'm going to find a reason to justify to hem you up to get your cash and your dough. Well, I'm just saying, I'm just being honest with you. I don't know about you. You would just, go hungry and you watch your kids go hungry. But I personally am going to be stealing from stores to feed my family or do whatever I have to do to survive. Anyway, that is the news as of this week for expats and visitors to Medellin, Colombia, and Colombia as a whole. Keep watching. More news to come. Thank you guys for watching. Travel, but travel safe.
Dating in Colombia can be confusing for foreign men. Plus, dating in Colombia can be outright dangerous. With ChicaCheck, you can date with confidence by screening your date first for past issues. Visit ChicaCheck.co and create your free account today.
If you're in Medellin and you need dental work done, from a basic cleaning to major reconstructive surgery, come see my guy, Dr. Carlos Mori. Contact information in the description below. Headed to Medellin, Colombia? See my guy Andres with Nomad Travel for safe airport pickups and drop-offs and tours. Contact information in the description below. Join me on social media. I am dcbornrob official on Instagram. I am dcbornrob official 1 on TikTok. I am dcbornrob O on Twitter. Don't be like this guy right here.
You're just so stupid. I had to send you a video to let you know that you're so stupid.
That's right. Don't be like this guy right here. Join me on social media.